All right, Katie and I went to Home Depot this morning, and normally I buy all my plants from garden centers, nurseries, that kind of thing that are local to support because it's a really great, really tough industry, and so getting things from there is highly preferable. But they had a $35 Honeycrisp apple this morning that we've been looking for one and haven't been able to find one bare root anywhere, and this one is really, really nice. So we grabbed that from Home Depot this morning, and today we're going to talk about how to plant a tree. So, all right, so when you are planting a tree that's balled in burlap, you want to leave the burlap on so that it keeps the soil in the root ball all intact still. So we'll get to that in a little bit. But in general, you want to dig a hole that is exactly as deep as the root ball is, and then at least twice as wide. So we're going to do that here in just a second, and the chickens are saying hi back there. But you also want to make sure, Jean, if you can come up here, that you leave the tree at the same height that it is here. And so you want to make sure right at this crown, you can see the root flare is starting to come out. So this is where the roots start to come out from the tree. And so you want to make sure that that is right at the top of the soil level when you are digging your hole. So now we're going to dig. But before we dig, it's always important to call Minnesota One Call before you do any digging. I've called Minnesota One Call in my backyard multiple times, so I know that there's nothing right here whatsoever. But before you dig, call Minnesota One Call to make sure that you're not going to hit any utilities and injure yourself and someone else. All right, now I've got the hole mostly dug, and you can see it's at least twice as wide as the root ball is and as deep. And the way you can check and see how deep it is just lay something over the top, and that way you get a good idea as to where it's at, and then you just measure here, and then you're in a really good spot. So we're in good shape there. You want to make sure not to dig your hole too deep, because when you dig your hole too deep, that allows for non-compacted soil at the bottom to, once you get the tree in and it starts to sink and that soil underneath compacts, then your tree is too deep in the ground. So you want to make sure not to dig a hole that is too deep. And the reason why you have it wide is so that these roots, tree roots don't in general go down very much at all. They just go out. So you have good, healthy soil for that to move into. Then the next thing you don't want to do is you don't want to mix anything in with the soil for trees. So trees and shrubs, generally you don't want to amend the soil much. You want to use what that soil is there, the native soil that is there. So this is our soil. I have lots of rocks here, but this is our soil. And so water has weird tendencies as it is moving through soils. It has a hard time. There's what's called a soil interface. So if you have one type of soil and then a very different type of soil, water doesn't move very well between those two things. And what can happen is if you have like really clay soil and you're planting a tree, and what will happen is you'll get this like a bowl effect where the water will just sit here and it won't move out, and then the roots will end up just swirling around and not moving into the native soil. So you want to make sure to use the same soil that you've got, just loosen it up and have it a lot more compact. So now you put your dude down in the center so that you're in good shape there. And then you can see how there are roots that are growing through, so we don't want to disturb those, but we do want to take this off of the top here. So we'll just leave, because this burlap will decompose and it's not going to be a problem, but you want to pull this off around the sides so that it can so the roots can go straight through. And this one's actually just all falling off, so we're going to pull it all off. If it's a bigger tree, we definitely want to leave it on there. So you have your tree where you want it, and now you just fill in back around it. You want to kind of do it around the whole thing, and then put a few scoops of soil in, and then you really want to compact it so that it doesn't move around. So step on it, make sure that that soil is compact so that there aren't any air bubbles in there, because the roots cannot grow into air bubbles very well. And that will keep your tree standing up in the right spots. So now when we get down here, you can see that we're all level. This is the root flare. So this is right where we have the top of the soil, and we are all set. You don't want the mulch to be touching the bark of the tree, so you want to pull it back just a little bit. And then we're all set. All right, for watering trees, I like to just take and you need to make sure to get the water on the root ball. So you remember how big that one was down there. It's a pretty small root ball. So we need to make sure all the roots are there. So we need to make sure that's where the water gets to. And what I like to do is just turn it on to a little trickle. And then just set it there for 15-20 minutes. So this is how you plant, the general concepts of how you plant any sort of tree. In a different video, we'll talk about pruning for fruit trees. So that is how you plant a tree. Now make sure to water it really well and keep things moving that way. So you're in great shape.